Sometimes life seems to change without warning. Conversations diminish, invitations disappear, and suddenly you realize that you spend more time with yourself than with others. Does it seem like a fluke? Maybe not. This isolation that arrives softly could be the beginning of something much bigger, an invisible calling. Have you ever noticed that before a big change, silence usually comes first? It's as if the universe wanted to prepare you, removing distractions so that you hear the only voice that really matters, yours. Imagine a player before the big match, isolated in the dressing room, focused and disconnected from the external noise. Isolation does exactly that to you. It creates space for clarity to emerge. If you feel like the world is moving away, maybe it's not a mistake, but a message. Watch for the signs. People leaving your life, old routines no longer making sense. These are signs that you are being called to something greater, even if you don't yet know what it is. Once silence takes over, the next step is often confusing. It's like walking into a dark room where you can't see anything. Suddenly, the certainties you had about life, about who you are, begin to crumble. This is the stage of confusion, and although it may seem chaotic, it is essential chosen. Have you ever had that feeling of being lost, as if everything that made sense was empty? This is the awakening beginning to act. Imagine you are reorganizing a closet full of things you have accumulated over the years. At first it seems to get worse. Everything is scattered and out of place. This is necessary so that you can organize, discard what is no longer useful and create something new. Emotional confusion is the same process. It forces you to question what really matters, separating what is true from what is not. If you are in this phase, embrace the chaos. He is proof that your life is being reorganized into something greater. After the confusion shakes you, the silence returns, but this time, it weighs differently. It's no longer a subtle invitation, it's a deep, almost unbearable loneliness that seems to want to swallow you. At that moment, you realize that being alone is not a choice, it is a necessity. Silence, once uncomfortable, turns into a giant mirror, reflecting who you really are. No distractions, no outside voices, all that's left is you and your thoughts. It may seem scary, but that's where the magic happens. Think of a forest in winter. The trees are bare, the ground is covered in ice, but beneath it all, life is preparing to flourish again. When we face this loneliness, we find answers that would never appear in the noise. It is in this silence that your inner voice, often muffled by the outside world, begins to speak. If you are at this stage, don't run away from it. This is where you discover that loneliness is not the end, but the beginning of a deeper connection with yourself. With detachment comes something inevitable: confrontation with yourself. Without the distractions, without the people and situations that once filled your life, all that remains is the mirror of the soul. And that mirror doesn't lie. It reflects your shadows, fears, insecurities, regrets, those parts you avoided for so long. Imagine a room full of boxes that have been stored for years. You need to open each one. Some are full of happy memories, but others contain memories you'd rather forget. This process is exactly what happens in isolation. You begin to notice old patterns, attitudes that sabotaged you, and pains that still carry weight over who you are. But here's the secret: it's by facing these shadows that you discover your strength. Every fear faced, every insecurity recognized, is a step towards freedom. Light only enters where there is space, and it is by illuminating your shadows that you begin to become who you were always meant to be. This is one of the most difficult times, but it is also the most freeing. If you feel like you're at this stage, take a deep breath and keep going. You are on the right path. After facing your shadows comes the most personal test of all: the feeling of rejection. When you start to change inside, it's common to notice that the people around you don't keep up with this pace. Invitations stop arriving, messages go unanswered, and the feeling of being misunderstood grows. But believe me, this is part of the process. Rejection, although painful, is like a fire that strengthens steel. It's a time of purification, where you learn to value your own company and trust yourself more. Think of a butterfly. In the cocoon, it is alone, rejected by the outside world, but that is where the transformation happens. Every no you receive, every door that closes, is a chance to build your emotional self-sufficiency. This doesn't mean you should close yourself off from the world, but rather understand that your validation doesn't have to come from outside. Rejection actually pushes you to find strength within yourself. The same strength that will be essential when the next stage of your journey begins to unfold. After facing rejection and finding strength in the midst of loneliness, the next step is inevitable: purification. All the emotional baggage you have accumulated, old pains, limiting beliefs, hurts that have remained buried, needs to be released. It's like cleaning a house that has been locked for a long time. It's no use just organizing. You need to dust yourself off and throw away what is no longer useful. In this process, emotions that you thought were resolved may suddenly surface. Maybe an old disagreement, a painful memory, or even that habit that you insist on keeping, even though you know it slows you down. All of this needs to be recognized and released. Think about how rain washes the earth. At first, it seems to make everything dirty with mud, but soon the water washes away what no longer belongs. This purification is not only emotional, but also energetic. Sometimes it means physically letting go of objects, routines, or environments that carry the energy of the old you. It's uncomfortable, yes, but the lightness that comes afterwards is liberating. The more space you create, the more prepared you will be for the next stage, where the new will begin to blossom. After purification, something incredible begins to happen. The silence that previously seemed empty gains a new vibration. It is in this clean space, free from external distractions and stagnant energies, that the internal revelation takes place. For the first time, you can clearly hear the whispers of your purpose. Imagine being in a room full of noise and suddenly everything goes silent. At first, the silence is uncomfortable, but soon you begin to notice subtle sounds: the wind, the beating of your heart. This is the discovery of purpose. Deep insights, almost like flashes of intuition, begin to emerge. Maybe you notice a dormant passion, a talent you've always underestimated, or an idea that seems to call your name. Being alone is not a void, but an invitation to reconnect with the essence of who you really are. If you feel like you are at this stage, trust what is emerging. Write down your ideas, notice the patterns that repeat themselves, pay attention to what sparks enthusiasm in you. These clues are the map that the universe is giving you to move forward, with direction and purpose. When purpose begins to emerge, something even deeper reveals itself, a spiritual connection that previously went unnoticed. It's as if, in the silence and solitude, you begin to feel that you are not so alone. Isolation, which seemed like a weight, turns into a portal to the sacred, a direct line with the divine. Think about that moment when you look up at the starry sky and feel an inexplicable peace, as if you were part of something much bigger. This is the kind of connection that thrives in isolation. No matter what name you give it, universe, energy, the important thing is to realize that there is something guiding and sustaining you. During this phase, signs begin to appear. Maybe it's a message you read by chance, a synchronicity that seems more than coincidence, or just a strong intuition leading you in the right direction. These moments are not random. They are reminders that isolation is not punishment, but care. Recognizing the sacred in isolation is understanding that, even in the most difficult phases, you were never truly alone. This is the time to open up to this connection, trust it, and use it as a guide for the next steps in your journey. With the spiritual connection established, you feel a greater force at your side, but this does not mean that the path becomes easy. In fact, this is the point at which the test of persistence intensifies. It's as if the universe said, "Are you ready to continue? Taste it." And this is where many give up. Difficulties increase, and even simple things seem to get complicated. Maybe you face delays in important plans, unexpected criticism, or that feeling that no matter how hard you try, nothing seems to move forward. This test is not to knock you down, but to solidify your confidence in yourself, in the process, and in the purpose you have begun to see. Think about how metal is shaped. It needs to go through extreme heat to be transformed into something useful and lasting. Likewise, these moments of difficulty are not a setback, but a disguised advancement. Each obstacle overcome proves that you are stronger and more prepared. Persisting here means not losing sight of what brought you to this point. If you feel like giving up, remember, the greatest achievements come to those who endure the most difficult times. It is in the test of persistence that you discover that you already have everything you need to win. Once you face the test of persistence, something starts to change, even if you don't notice it right away. These are the first signs of transformation, small but powerful, indicating that you are no longer the same person who started this journey. It's like a butterfly that, when leaving its cocoon, needs time to adapt to its wings. You can notice this in your reactions. Situations that previously shook you deeply seem smaller, almost irrelevant. What used to hold you back, fear, doubts, need for approval, starts to lose strength. It's as if an invisible weight is being lifted, layer by layer. Another clear sign is alignment with new opportunities. People, ideas, or paths that previously didn't make sense appear synchronically, as if the universe was showing you that you are in the right flow. This transformation is not just internal, it also reflects on the world around you. You begin to attract that which resonates with who you are becoming. Recognizing these changes is essential to consolidate them. Every little bit of progress is a reminder that you are emerging as a stronger, wiser, more aligned version of yourself. With the signs of transformation taking shape, you begin to notice something surprising. That intense pain that accompanied you no longer weighs like it used to. Instead of feeling disconnected, you begin to experience a new alignment, as if you are finally in tune with the universe and the natural flow of life. It's a moment of clarity that comes almost as a relief. Confusion gives way to understanding, and challenges that once seemed insurmountable make sense. Think of a river that, after days of storms, returns to flowing calmly. Everything that was held back begins to move, creating space for the new. You feel like you are where you are supposed to be, doing what you are supposed to do. Choices become more intuitive, decisions more secure, because they come from a place of purpose, not uncertainty. This alignment does not eliminate difficulties, but it transforms the way you face them. This is where you understand that the entire process, the isolation, the pain, the tests, was not in vain. They prepared you for that moment of connection, where you realize you are not separate from the universe, but part of it. This is true rebirth. The clarity that, even in the struggles, you have always been moving towards your purpose. When alignment starts to happen, it is natural that some traces of pain still appear. After all, you've been through a lot. But here's the secret: this pain, which once seemed unbearable, has a clear purpose. It is shaping you. And it is at this point that healing becomes possible, even in the midst of chaos. Healing is not about erasing pain, but learning to live with it in a lighter way, allowing it to teach and transform. One of the most powerful techniques for this is the practice of presence. Instead of fighting the discomfort, try asking yourself, what does this pain want to show me? By embracing your emotions, you begin to disarm them, taking away the power they had over you. Another way to cope is by creating small daily rituals. It could be writing about how you feel, spending a few minutes in silence meditating, or even connecting with nature. These simple moments help you reorganize your energy and maintain clarity amidst the chaos. And remember, every time you choose to face rather than run away, a piece of the pain dissolves. Peace comes not because everything became easy, but because you learn to find strength and meaning even in difficult times. This is the true cure. With pain transformed into learning and peace rediscovered, something profound begins to emerge. The realization that everything you experienced was not just for you. Isolation, with all its challenges, is also preparation for you to inspire and guide others. You carry a wisdom that can only be gained through experience. Think about how stars are only visible in darkness. Your journey in isolation has given you the clarity that many are still seeking. And by sharing this, you become a light to those who are still lost. But this sharing doesn't have to be grand or public. Sometimes, it's in an intimate conversation, a word of support, or even your silent example of resilience that the impact is made. The energy you transmit, the result of what you have learned, naturally attracts those who need to hear it. Isolation has taught you that real connection comes from the inside out, and it's that authenticity that inspires. You are more than someone who overcame challenges. You are a catalyst for change, helping others see that the light at the end of the tunnel has always been within them. This is where your journey expands, touching lives in ways you may never imagine. Once you gain wisdom and share your light, it is impossible to ignore the fundamental role of faith in the entire journey. In the darkest moments, when nothing seemed to make sense, it was faith, even if minimal, that kept you going. Believing, even without guarantees, is what turns the impossible into reality. Faith is not just about religion or spirituality. It's about trusting the process, even when you don't see the full path. Think of a boat going through fog. The sailor doesn't see the other side, but he trusts the map and continues rowing. On your journey, faith is this invisible map. Maintaining hope means focusing on the next step, not the end of the journey. Maybe it's just a small habit, like being grateful for what's still working in your life, or remembering a time when everything seemed lost, but worked out in the end. These little anchors connect you to the possibility that something bigger is at work, even if you don't see it. Faith does not eliminate fear or doubts, but it teaches us to continue even with them. And in the end, you realize that believing wasn't just a choice. It was what kept you together when everything around you seemed to be falling apart. This is the transformative power of faith. It gives you courage to face the unknown and discover that there is always something to be found there. With faith as your foundation and the wisdom accumulated during isolation, the time has come to return to the world, but as a new version of yourself. This rebirth is not about returning to the way things were before, but about integrating everything you have learned and aligning yourself with the purpose you finally recognize. You are no longer the same person who entered this process. Pain turned into strength, doubt into clarity, and silence into a deep connection with oneself. When interacting with the world, you realize that your choices have more intention and your actions carry more meaning. Think of someone who goes through intense training and, at the end, comes out more prepared to face challenges. This is exactly your journey. Everything that seemed impossible before seems natural, because you are guided by an internal certainty that isolation has brought. When you return, you become a transformative presence. Whether in a small gesture, a word, or an action, the impact of what you experienced begins to manifest itself in the world around you. This is the point where your inner journey meets your outer mission, and together they create a powerful cycle of transformation and purpose. With return to the world, purpose finally becomes clear, and with it comes the responsibility to act. Discovering your calling is a milestone, but the real impact comes when you turn that revelation into action. After all, those chosen are not only defined by their experiences, but by what they do with them. The first step to living your purpose is simple. Start small. Great missions are often born from everyday gestures. If your calling is to help, start with those close to you. If it's creating, dedicate time daily to turning your ideas into reality. The important thing is not the size of what you do, but the consistency with which you do it. Another essential step is to trust the continuous process. Your purpose may evolve as you go, but each action aligns you more deeply with who you are destined to be. Think of it like walking on a lighted trail. With each step, new parts of the path reveal themselves. And finally, share your journey. Your story could be the inspiration someone needs to begin their own transformation. Remember, the chosen ones are not those who just discover their purpose, but those who have the courage to live it, day after day, impacting the world in a genuine and transformative way. Isolation may seem like the end, But it is actually a beginning. The beginning of something profound and transformative. Each stage you face is a step towards the purpose the universe has in store for you. Remember, you are not alone on this journey, and your strength is much greater than you imagine. How about taking the next step? Subscribe to the channel to continue exploring life-changing topics, and leave a comment below. Which stage do you believe you are at?